Anyone else? We'll get you more. Anybody want a water? One more. Speak now.
Sorry.
Just one more.
Can I sit down or do I have to stay standing here?
Oh, you can.
Okay, I just don't want to do anything wrong with standing up. Okay.
If you'd like to take a walk, you're fine.
Okay, thanks.
All right, very good. Have a seat. Thank you. We are still on the record in the matter of State of Utah versus MacNeill. Mr. MacNeill is present. His counsel are both present. The state's attorneys are here. The witness is seated. The jury is seated. You may continue.
So you don't recall saying anything to Dr. Fricke about the over-medication incident as you've described it here in court today, correct?
That's correct. I don't recall.
And then the day after this so-called over-medication incident on April 5th, there was an appointment with Dr. Thompson, a follow-up appointment, right?
You said the day after her.
Yeah, so April 6th.
On April 6th.
Yeah.
I don't remember that specific date, but I do believe she had two. Well, I know for sure on the 10th she had the last follow-up, and then I know she had one in between.
You didn't say anything to Dr. Thompson either about this over-medication incident either.
I don't believe I did because I was giving her medication. She was no longer over-medicated, so that wasn't an issue.
And then and I asked you that at the preliminary hearing as well, right?
I don't remember. What page?
814 and 815.
Okay. 814. Okay, I'm on 814.
And so down on line 20, I asked you, and you never told him that you thought she was over-medicated, and you answered no, because by that time I was the one giving her the medication and she wasn't over-medicated.
Did you ask me this? I think Susan Guston did.
You are exactly right. It was Suzanne. Yep.
Suzanne, whatever her name is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So, and so then Suzanne said, okay, and you said she was fine, she was fine. And then the question was asked, but you never mentioned that was a problem, right? And you answered, I don't recall mentioning that. Right?
I don't, because she was fine at that time. She was no longer over-medicated.
And then Suzanne asked you, okay, did you mention that to anybody else, that your mom had been over-medicated? And you answered, I don't think so, correct?
Which line are you referring to?
On page 815, line 6.
Yeah, you know, I don't recall this time me mentioning it to anyone else.
And then that's the same thing that you testified to at the preliminary hearing as well, right? That you don't think you mentioned it to anybody else.
This is the preliminary hearing.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. You just...
Yeah, oh, and well, I'm referring to this, yes.
Okay.
I don't remember. I could have maybe mentioned it to a sibling or something, but I just don't remember. I mean, I talked to my mom about it.
At the preliminary hearing, you also said that every sip of water that your mother took, you would have written that in the log as well, correct?
Yeah, I was writing that in the log.
There's nothing in the Zyrtec log that has sips of water.
Well, that's because I was doing that in the Black Book log.
And so the Black Book log was actually before?
Initially, well,
the-
kind of at the same time. I was doing like vitals and food and everything, and then I decided I wanted to combine them all to one log.
In your official statement from September of 2007, you don't mention anything in there about a fight between your mother and father about Gypsy Willis that you overheard, correct?
I don't know, like I said, these were very short little paragraphs that I was just giving concise little statements, but
So- So at that time, you didn't think that that was important? Or was that something that just came about later in your
it didn't, I mean, it's something that happened, and if I didn't document everything, I mean, I left out a lot. I mean, this was me just writing up a few things to give to the police. But let me just look here to make sure I didn't say it. And only the first, let me see. Only the first, there's 5 pages that even talk about the death of my mother. The rest of it is other information. But I did talk about, oh yeah, I did mention it here on page 4.
Is it?
On page 4. Oh, when she talked about, what she talked about, she was concerned about Gypsy Jillian Willis.
Right, yeah, she just talked about that with you, right? That's what you...
Well, and I didn't include that, but that must have been the day of the fight too, because that's when she said she's not going to let that issue die as well. And that's what I overheard them arguing about.
Exactly.
And that's what my mom was saying.
So in your official statement, you didn't say anything in there about a fight. You just said that she talked to you.
But I did when I was interviewed with the police.
You did a couple years later.
Oh, I don't know if it was a couple of years later. Well,
Well, in 2011. So,
okay. Sorry, did you have a question?
I do.
Okay. Sorry, I just am kind of rambling a little bit.
You testified today about your mother's bathing habits, correct?
Yes.
And investigators had asked you about that in the past as well, right? About her bathing habits?
I know they have in the past. I don't recall specifically when.
You've never ever told anybody until today that it was your mother's habit to start the water in the tub and then get in, have you?
No, that's not true. I had emailed Doug Whitney. That's what the prosecution brought up, an email from a couple, I don't remember what day it was, but I'm sure they have a copy of it.
Let's look at the exhibits in tab 17.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
And there's an email sometime shortly after April 27th, 2011 from you to Jeff Robinson, right?
Yes.
And you indicated that your mother does take a bath
Yes.
every day, right?
I said usually every day.
And then on the next page, you talked about my mom usually took her clothes off in her closet before getting into the bath, right? She didn't normally leave them on the floor next to the tub, right?
No, she'd normally change in her closet.
Then he said sometimes she would take her clothes off in her bedroom and would drape them over the couch in her room, right?
Yes.
So in 2011, you didn't talk about what you said here today about this habit of your mother always filling the tub first.
I wasn't asked at this time. I don't believe I was asked at this time, so it never came up.
In your Zyrtec log, you have a notation on day 4, 10:45 p.m. That you gave your mother a stool softener.
Yes, it wrote down stool softener times 3.
You knew she was constipated.
My mom, I don't know if I knew she was constipated. You just normally give medications for that when you're taking narcotics.
You didn't give the stool softener on day 2, did you?
You know, sometimes it usually takes a few days before that effect kicks in.
Didn't give the stool softener on day 3, did you?
Let me just see. It does not look like I did.
And you didn't give the stool softener on day 5 either, did you?
Maybe she didn't need it by then.
Fair to say you weren't with your mother all the time when she took baths?
Every single time she took a
Yes.
bath? Yeah, I couldn't be.
Took them usually every day, right?
She took them very often.
And so, while you may have observed her some of the time, you don't know what her practice was on all the times that you didn't observe her, obviously, right?
That's correct. But she did have a routine.
That you observed when you were a child watching her take baths.
Well, I think I was 22 at that time, so over the 20 years.
You testified here today in court that when you spoke with your mother on April 11th that she was doing just fine, right?
That's correct.
That she wasn't reporting being sick or nauseated at all?
No, she was feeling really good.
Just turn back to 12C again. Referring to Dr. Fricke's notes on page 2. See the note where she says she was feeling a little, referring to the day of death, AM of death, she was feeling a little sick and planning to return to bed? Do you recall that discussion occurring when you and your father were speaking to Dr. Fricke on speakerphone?
You know, I don't recall the specifics of that.
Did you tell Dr. Fricke, no, that's not right, Mom was feeling just fine on the day of her death?
No, I was just listening in. And I believe this is what my dad was saying.
And that's inconsistent with what your memory is now? as far as how your mom was
It's
feeling?
inconsistency of what my memory was. I mean, it's inconsistent to what my memory was because she was feeling good. I mean, I wouldn't have gone home if she wasn't feeling good.
You remember speaking at her funeral?
Yes.
You remember at the funeral during your talk, talking about how your mother was feeling the day of the morning of her passing?
I don't. I think, well, I remember certain things, but I don't think I'm allowed to say it, so.
I'll show you the transcript here in just a second. Just missing it. So would you turn to tab 22C?
Yes.
You recognize this as a transcript of your talk at your mother's funeral?
I don't specifically remember saying this.
You see down towards the bottom, the last time I spoke to my mom, she was happy. She was feeling a little sick.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that. Just remember her saying that my dad was being so nice to her. So sweet, as that's highlighted. And I remember, like I said here, that my mom was happy.
I'm going to play it for you.
Okay.
You turn down the lights. No. Okay. Okay.
In reviewing, now that you've had more time to review the talk, does this seem to be an accurate transcript of your talk at your mother's
You
funeral?
know, I really just don't remember saying that, but yeah, so I think I'd have to listen to it.
Okay, I'll get it for you shortly. Turn to tab 24. Actually, let's just turn to your preliminary hearing testimony on page 770.
Do I need both of these open at the same time?
No, no.
Okay, not this one, okay.
So at the preliminary hearing, you were asked about when Gypsy moved in, and you indicated that it was 2 to 3 weeks after your mother had passed away. Is that
Ye-
correct?
Yes.
And that's correct with your memory here today?
It was very shortly after my mother died, within a couple of weeks.
Back to the day that your mother passed away, you've testified earlier that you spoke with her at about 7:45 Las Vegas time, 8:45 Utah time, right?
That's correct.
And that's the only time you spoke to her that day?
Yes.
And there's, on your phone records, that shows that there was a call at 8:41, which you previously indicated was 7:41 Vegas time, 8:41 Utah time, which was a call from you to your mother that was not answered, right?
Yeah, there was on the phone record, uh-huh.
And then she called you back. just a
Yeah,
couple
I know
minutes
I
later.
only talked to her one time that morning.
And you discussed speaking with your mother in your official statement as well, right?
I believe I did mention that.
And in your official statement, you said that you had spoke to your mother twice that day, correct?
Which page would that be on, Mr. Spencer?
All right, I lost my place in my notes. So many papers here, I'm sorry, Judge.
Okay.
Okay. So it's tab 19. And so then tab A,
19A.
so it's paragraph 10. In your official statement, you said that you'd spoke to your mother twice before you began classes, right?
Yeah, that's what was written here, but I don't remember speaking to her twice. I know the phone records show that there was a 1-minute call, and then she called me back, and it was like a 2-minute call. So I don't know if she picked up the phone and said, I'm going to call you right back. I don't remember that.
Well, you've previously, though, indicated that first call was a no answer, right?
That, to my recollection, I don't remember my mom answering the first time. That's correct.
And here in your official statement, which was written in September of '07, you indicated that you had already spoken to her twice.
That's what it said here, yes.
And then you
And it
indicated
said
that
she
you got-
sounded fine.
yeah. And then you got a message from your father, right?
Yes,
And then it says that you tried to call your mom several times the next hour but couldn't reach her.
yes.
Your phone records don't indicate that you actually tried to call your mother several times, do they?
I don't know, how many times does it show?
So it's 3 calls. The
Well, because I not only called, I believe, my mom's cell phone, but I also called the home phone.
And since you indicate you were concerned, you certainly would have called long enough to let your answering machine pick up at home, right?
I don't even know if we had an answering machine at home. I don't think we did. And I only had a short time in between classes, so, and I really wasn't worried about my mom because she was great when I just previously talked to her.
Okay. You also sent emails to the investigators in this case in relation to calling your mother, correct?
I don't remember the specifics of emails, but I'm sure I have sent I've sent numerous emails.
Turn over to tab B.
To tab B, okay.
See an email dated September 14th of 2008 that the prosecution has provided us?
Yes.
And right about in the middle of the page, you write, looking at my schedule that day, April 11, 2007, I know that I called around 10:30 a.m. Utah time and spoke with my mother. That's what you wrote, right?
Yes.
And then she said she was feeling fine, right?
Yeah, but I was getting the time thing confused.
Okay. And then you write, my first class did not start until 11 Utah time, right?
No, my first class actually started at, I believe, 9 o'clock Utah time. I think I was adding an hour instead of subtracting it.
Okay. There happens to be a phone call from your cell phone records at 9:50 Nevada time or 10:50 Utah time that was placed, correct?
So it would be 9:50 Nevada time. That would be in between my second and third lecture, I believe, where I did call home. I only spoke with my mom at my apartment that day. That's the only time I ever had a conversation with her.
Here in this email, you say you know that you called around 10:30 a.m. and spoke with your mother. And there happens to be a call on your log, on your cell phone log at 10:50 a.m. Isn't that consistent?
I don't know. I'm going to look at the official statement I gave because I don't think I had my phone records or anything at this time. But I only spoke with my mom once, and that was at my apartment before class started. And I am 100% sure about that.
So your statement in your official statement that you'd already talked to her twice that day was wrong?
You know, and like I said, maybe that initial call that was only a minute was me calling and her saying, I'll call you right back, something like that. But I only specifically remember talking to her once, and that was when I was at home in my Henderson apartment. And this is wrong, because my first class did start, maybe I was looking at the wrong schedule or something like that, but my first class started, I believe, at 8 o'clock. I'd have to go over that, but it was an early start. I'd have classes usually starting at 8. And I said this is...
Sometimes canceled, right?
They were, but I mean, I had friends all around me too. I mean, I was sitting in class making these phone calls right around people.
None of which, do these 3 phone calls you referenced, show up on your call log?
Sorry?
Excuse me, the 3 phone calls that you say you made after you got the message from your father.
And, you know, at the beginning of this email, I said, this email is full of random memories. Each paragraph is a different memory or thought. I tried to recall all that you asked me, but so I just don't think this was 100% my timing there. But I know for sure when I spoke with my mom for the last time, and that was in my apartment in Henderson.
To tab C. This is an email a week later on September 21st of 2008. I'm going to go to page 2. You say you called and spoke with your mom before leaving for school around 10:30 a.m. School started at 11 a.m. Utah time.
It didn't, though. I mean, I obviously put it down wrong here. This is over a year later.
So you put it down wrong in consecutive weeks.
Yeah, you know, and then I ended up, I believe I ordered my phone transcripts. And then when I actually had my transcripts in front of me, I could put the exact times. I was messed up with the Pacific time and switching things around.
And so if you look at your phone transcripts, which are in tab D, it shows that you placed a call at 7:41 a.m. for
That's
1 minute, right?
Yeah, so that would be 8:41 Utah time.
Right, and that's the one.
That's the last, that's when I talked to my mom.
Oh, actually, that's the one that you indicated in the past was a non-answer, and then there was one at 7:44.
Okay, so
with your mother
7:44 instead of
calling back.
7:41. Okay.
Yeah, so there's the 7:41, which you've previously stated was no answer. 7:44, you spoke to your mother for 2 minutes,
Yeah,
and then at 9:50 Nevada time, 10:50 Utah time, there's a call that you placed for a 1 minute duration to Utah, or to your home number, rather.
yes.
Okay.
But I didn't get a hold of her. She didn't
Even though
answer.
in these other emails, you expressed your memories that you
Well-
know you talked to your mother around 10:30.
Well, it took a while. I think it was after that, that's when I got all my phone records. And as soon as I got the records, I was able to better document exactly what time, because this showed exactly what time in Nevada. And then as soon as I did that, I gave those to
In other
the,
words, what you're saying is it took a while for you to put together your story, correct?
no, that's not what I was saying.
So you expressed your memories of what happened, and then you got the phone records, which were inconsistent with your memories, and so you then changed your story
Oh.
to harmonize with the phone records.
No, I think I was just getting the times wrong. But I mean, I know for a fact this is when I talked with my mom for the last time. And I can,
I'll get you another question here in a second.
okay.
At the preliminary hearing on page 754,
Hold on 1 second. Can I just take 1 minute?
yeah.
And I don't know if this is something the prosecution brings up, but on my official
I'll ask you
statement,
another question, and then
okay,
you can answer that. And so turn to the preliminary hearing at, on page 754. And lines 10 through 13, you indicated that you would have listened to your father's message right away during a break?
yes,
That's what you said, right?
During the break, yes.
And going back to your phone records, it shows on, and if you need to flip back there, it's tab 19D.
19B or 19D? Okay. Okay. Okay.
It shows an incoming call from your father at 8:10 a.m. Nevada time or 9:10 a.m. Utah time
Yes.
for 2 minutes, right? And you've testified you think that was a voicemail?
I believe so. That was the voicemail. Like I'd said,
Possible that that was actually a connected call with your father that you spoke with him?
no.
Because after that, at 8:29 and 8:30, you call customer care for your phone company, right? Isn't that what's on your record?
That's what's in the record, yes.
So
But
either you weren't in class then, or you at least had plenty of time to listen to your dad's voicemail long before a break in class, right?
You know, I don't know. Maybe I'd called it and I was on hold. I don't remember calling customer care that day.
But that's what shows on your phone records.
It shows a customer care, yes.
In relation to when you got the message about your mother's passing, you went to the airport and you testified today that you flew home and went directly to the house, right?
Yes.
And you testified at the preliminary hearing that you went directly to the house because you wanted to go check on the medications, right?
Yes.
And in your January 5th, 2011 interview, you said something different, right?
I don't remember, but let's see.
I turned
What
to
page?
6.
Okay.
Line 127. In January 2011, Chris Anderson picked you up and you drove directly to the hospital, right?
That's, I think that's what I wrote here, but that's not what happened. I drove home first.
Well, this isn't what you wrote. This is in response to questions that you were asked by the investigators, right?
Yes, this was the investigators asking me.
And so when they asked you questions in January 2011, you said you got here with Chris and you went right to the hospital.
That's what I remembered, but then when thinking back, I remember it differently because I went home first, and then I remember my friend Wendy driving me to the hospital, so I forgot that detail.
So if you turn to page
And this was,
69 of that
2011.
interview, same interview,
Uh-huh.
you talked about Wendy in this interview as well, so you didn't forget that detail, right?
Okay.
Page 1482, you said, I know that Chris drove me, I went to the hospital, and then my other friend, who I called Wendy, I called her when I was driving home from Salt Lake City, and she rushed to the hospital. And she was getting to the hospital at the same time I was getting there, so I think Chris dropped me off at the hospital, and then Wendy met me, and we walked in at the same time and found out that my mom wasn't there. And so then Wendy took you home. So you did talk about Wendy
Okay.
at the interview, right?
Yes.
And at the interview, even when you remember talking about Wendy, you went to the hospital to check on your mom, and then Wendy took you home, right?
Yeah, I guess
Your
I was,
testimony here today that you went straight home, that's not accurate, is it?
to what I remember going home first, and then I remember going to the hospital and just turning right around, because right as I walked in the hospital doors, they said the medical examiner had already taken me, so the hospital wasn't a big event for me.
Well, that clearly wasn't what you remembered on January 5th of 2000.
I guess I was, yeah, I don't, I guess what I put here is that I went to the hospital first and then went home, but as I recall it, I went home first.
Call it now.
That's what I recall, yeah. And maybe that's something we can ask Chris about, if he remembers dropping me off at the hospital or at home first.
And when you got home, whichever time it was, you went into your parents' bedroom, and your dad was in there, and the lights were off, right?
I did go into my parents' bedroom. I don't remember at this time if the lights were off or not, but that could have definitely been the case.
In January of 2011, you remember that the lights were off, and he was sitting on the couch looking down, right?
January 5th, you mean?
January 5th, 2011, I
Okay.
mean, yes.
Which page?
Page 63.
Okay.
He was just on the couch looking down. Line 1355, his mind was somewhere else, right?
That's what Doug Whitney said, his mind was somewhere else. I didn't say that.
You said, yeah, you agreed with him.
I had said he wasn't crying. He was just looking, not rigid, but, and then Doug Whitney said his mind was somewhere else. I said, yeah.
I said, yeah. And then you said, and he was going very slowly, right?
Yes.
And then you've talked today about a time when your dad explained to you what happened to your mother, right?
I talked today about that. That's correct.
And today you said that he talked to you about that as a result of your request, right?
Yes, he did, and it happened twice.
And you asked him both times, right?
I know at least one of the times I asked, show me how you found her. And then I don't know if the other time he was just telling Rachel kind of the same thing.
Well, still on page 63, in your interview on January 2011, you don't discuss that it happened twice. You say on line 1364, it was later on that evening when Rachel came home that I asked my dad what happened, show me how you found my mom. That's what you said in January of 2011, right?
Yeah, just give me a minute so I can read this. Yeah, I did. I was talking about when later on that evening, when he showed me for the second time with Rachel, which was the same time. I mean, he said he showed the same thing.
Yeah, you don't say that there were two times in this January 2011 interview, right?
No, but I believe I said it in other earlier interviews.
Okay. what you say here in January 2011, you say, it was later on that evening when Rachel came home that I asked my dad what happened. That's what you say then, right? Line 1364 and 1365.
I think in earlier interviews,
I'm just asking you about this interview.
and this one specifically, I said it was later on in the evening that I asked my dad what happened. That's correct.
Yeah, later on that evening when Rachel came home, that I asked my dad what had happened, show me how you found my mom, right?
That's correct.
That's what you said. And then you go on to explain that it was not until 6 or 7 that Rachel got home, right?
That's correct.
Because it was dark. Your Honor, I've probably got another 30, 40 minutes.
Okay. Are you at a place where it's a good time to break?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
Let's continue in the morning
The
then.
jury's probably got commitments.
We'll now be in recess for the evening. During our recess, remember it's your duty not to discuss any subject of the trial with each other or with anyone else. It's your duty not to form or express an opinion on the case until it's finally submitted to you for deliberation. Avoid television, radio, or internet news coverage of the trial. Do no research on your own using a computer or anything else. We'll commence back here tomorrow morning, 8:30. Thank you so much for being on time each day. We work hard to get moving. Invariably, there are some housekeeping matters that we try to deal with. In light of that, could we start at 9 o'clock? Because tomorrow morning, I think we have to deal with a couple of matters raised earlier this morning.
That's fine, Your Honor.
Is that fair? Why don't we begin at 9 o'clock? Thanks so much.
All rise.
Thank you. Please be seated. You may step down. Thank you. In the morning, I don't know what that interference is. In the morning, will you have the information that you need in relation to the inmates that you discussed earlier?
Information with respect to what
Well,
specific, Your Honor?
Yeah, the specifics of it. Right now, I just have some generalized expression of concern on the part of inmates, and I think in order to apply the rule, I need to have specific information as to each inmate and make factual findings.
I will.
So,
I have an email from Jeff Robinson, the case officer. He would be prepared to give specifics.
okay.
Through me or even to the court, we can make a proffer.
Can you provide that email to the defense?
Yes.
So that they're prepared? As I understand the presumption, there has to be a compelling reason to make limitations on the electronic media coverage of the trial. And so I need details about that. And we did have some of those specifics with inmates 1 and 2, but right now I don't have enough on 3 and 4. So if there are those facts, I'd like to see them.
Okay. And just for the court, there's 4 total.
Okay.
One of them is in a separate Texas prison. 3 are together in another prison. And it's 2 of the 3 that we're talking about. And I think that we could provide some specifics.
Very good. I'll need that. Anything else this evening?
I was just going to add, I know Dr. Gray, tomorrow's his day that he's available. He's not available Friday. I had indicated that we would try and get him up first. I obviously wouldn't interrupt Mr. Spencer's cross on Ms. Somers, but I wonder if the court might be willing, depending on how long the cross goes, to interrupt before I have an opportunity to redirect Ms. Somers, if we could put up Dr. Gray.
How long do you think you'll be with him?
He'll probably be pretty significant, so I'm going to see what I can do if he's okay with a delay.
Okay.
But he'll be up there.
Is this the kind of witness that would take up the bulk of the day, or Dr. Gray, or not?
I don't think he'll take up the entire day, but he
Much
could,
shorter than Alexis, I think.
he could take up much of the morning, though.
Okay. And you think you have about 30 minutes, 30 to,
I think about 30. I'll work on honing that.
okay,
I'll have some redirect, probably not extensive, though.
okay. Well, we may be okay if we get going at 9, finish with Ms. Somers by maybe 10, if you've got,
I really think we can do that. I know there were some areas I was a little slow on. I apologize for that. I'll make sure that I'm quick.
well, there's a lot to cover, so, and that gives you 2 hours before lunch with Dr. Gray.
We'll be able to get his testimony, and that's fine.
Okay. Who do you anticipate calling tomorrow?
Your Honor, can I make a record with your clerk after? I don't have the...
Yeah, if you could just get a list, that would be great.
Okay.
Anything else today?
That's all?
Good. Thank you for your work. Court's in recess.
All